Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Carly Shortino Poulter, and I'm the director of the ARC Advocacy Network at the ARC of Indiana. And I'd like to welcome you to our Ask the ARC series. Tonight, we have Natalie Miller and Elise Schrock from the Marion County Prosecutor's Office coming to talk with us about the Blue Envelope program and what that program is and how you may be able to replicate it in your community. Um, we are going to let them talk this evening. We are recording tonight's presentation, so I want to make sure that you keep that in mind as you ask your questions. I am going to ask that as you ask your questions to go ahead and put those in the Q&A, and we're going to wait on those until the end of our presentation. And now I'd like to welcome Elise Schrock and Natalie Miller. Ladies, hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. It's great to be with you all. I'm going to set up my PowerPoint. And while I do that, Natalie, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself and talk about what you do at our office?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name's Natalie Miller. I've been with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office since April of 2016 and have served in a couple different roles over the years. In addition to working in constituent services, currently that's my main role. I'm also co-creator and director of our Different Not Less initiative, which is centered on providing opportunities for those with disabilities in our office, as well as general disability related advocacy in Marion County. This was started very early on in my time there by then Marion County Prosecutor Terry Curry and myself. And the Blue Envelope program has been our latest installment of this and easily our biggest undertaking so far.
Great. And can you all see this okay?
We sure can.
Okay, excellent. And my name is Elise Schrock, and I am a communications consultant. And so I help the prosecutor's office with special projects. I'm really just the support. Natalie is the expert in this field. Different Not Less is such an important program. It's something that I support. And it's been a real honor to be able to come alongside all of Natalie's research, all of Natalie's expertise, to just kind of bring this project into motion and present it to the public. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Welcome to the Blue Envelope Program, Research, Launch, and Impact in Marion County. We'll kind of bring you into this project with the introduction of our purpose, which is Natalie, if you want to take this slide, I'll let you kind of talk about the genesis of this idea and what you were really thinking about when you first brought this idea forward.
Well, at the core purpose of Blue Envelope is what it does is it provides envelopes to drivers with disabilities, and this provides a convenient place for them to put essential documents like vehicle registration, their license, an emergency contact, and should they get pulled over for a traffic stop, they provide this envelope with all the necessary information to the police officer, and the language on the envelope signals to the cop that this person has a disability and might not respond to the situation the way that they're probably expecting. This opens up a channel of communication and understanding, and in the long term is intended to strengthen relationships between those with disabilities and law enforcement, because a lot of elements to traffic stops and driving in general can stress out people with disabilities, and more so than the general population. And unfortunately, to the untrained eye, some of these overreactions could look very similar to someone acting out on purpose or being intoxicated. And so we're hoping that by opening this channel of communication, the police will be able to understand the situation and prevent unnecessary confrontation and, heaven forbid, violence, because there have been cases of where people of traffic stops gone wrong. And I think police brutality and violence has become a hot topic in the past decade or so, but it's mostly been from a race or immigration perspective. Disability is a perspective on this that isn't highlighted very often. So a secondary goal of this is to build awareness, not just among law enforcement, but other parts of the criminal justice system, like the prosecutor's office and the community at large. The more informed all of us are, the better decisions we're able to make. And although this could help people with many kinds of disabilities, it does tend to focus predominantly on intellectual, behavioral, and developmental ones.
Yes. And so what we're trying to do with this webinar tonight is kind of give you a look behind the hood of how we took all of what Natalie has just said and tried to create clear pathways for how to really de-escalate these situations, both by creating understanding with law enforcement for how this could be used, creating a practical tool of the actual blue envelope, which I'll show you today, and how we presented it to the public. So let's get into the details. So this is, let's talk about what is the Blue Envelope program. Natalie, do you want to talk about how this reduces anxiety and maybe misunderstandings?
On the envelope, first of all, the envelope itself is designed to carry all of the documents that one might need during a traffic stop. That way one doesn't have to just go rummaging through their glove compartment and it's advised to be clipped to the car visor for easy access. And there's language on the envelope communicating that the driver has a disability, and it provides instructions for the cop as well as for the driver, like telling the driver things like wait for explicit permission before you leave. Don't just assume because they stop talking to you for a few seconds that you're in the clear. And so I think that simply opening that channel of communication will provide a level of security. No, because it ensures that the police officers on the scene understand the situation. But this is kind of a two-way street. Again, it's on drivers and law enforcement. The drivers are the ones that request the envelopes, but it is on the police officers to listen to what. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. My cat's decided now would be a good time for her witching hour and is getting into some mischief.
Do you want me to maybe take talk a little bit about what's on the envelope that signals to officers?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, yeah. So on one side, you have something that clearly says important papers. And it's got the seal of both the prosecutor's office and the IMPD on here that signals, hey, this is a professional document. And it's got instructions for the driver, like Natalie was talking about. To keep your hands on the steering wheel, just a heads up on officers. If it's at night, there may be a flashlight that an officer may be using. If they may have their lights on, there may be sounds. We know that sensory is a huge trigger, auditory triggers, light triggers. So it just kind of says like what to expect, because we know when we're clear with communication and folks know a little bit more about what's about to happen, they feel a little bit more in control. And then on the other side, you've got something that clearly says driver with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It says, my name is, in an emergency, please contact, and notes about me. So this is where a person or their caretaker can help fill this out. And then it has some notes for law enforcement officials or professionals. And that's where it's the real signal to law enforcement officers, where it says, hey, repetitive body movements, that's just a natural thing. Fidgeting, unusual eye contact, those are things that in law enforcement training in the past could have been signaled as like shifty behavior. Not in this case. Not in this case. This is just a natural response to a high anxiety experience for a lot of people. And so we're trying to say that explicitly. Drivers are going to experience high anxiety due to things like bright lights and noise. It says to use simplistic language to make sure you're communicating clearly and simply, not using a lot of acronyms or assuming that people understand what you mean, and to clearly tell a driver when a stop is over and that they can leave, so that there's not a misunderstanding about someone leaving before the stop is over. And if a driver does become upset, to refer to this emergency contact. It's really, we don't want things to get there, but it's also to serve as a de-escalation tool. So, Natalie, do you want to talk a little bit about the research phase and some of the other states that you looked at when we were putting this together?
Definitely. So even though this launched officially in April, our research for this actually began late last year. And after I kind of learned about this program and what it was and what it entailed, there were several, mostly local jurisdictions across the state. I know there are places in New Jersey, there are a couple out in California, one out in Arizona, and then it had been implemented statewide in Massachusetts. And that was, I think, kind of my main reference point for getting started. We learned some people focus specifically on autism and similar disabilities. Some have broadened it to include more disabilities. These were nearly always had one law enforcement, usually the law enforcement with the name of whatever city it was in, backing it up in tandem with the ARC of wherever they were at, or a similar organization. So we used those as reference points to figure out kind of what might work here in Indianapolis. And just as we were kind of beginning to put things together, we met with Kim, who's in charge of the ARC of Indiana. She was on board with this immediately and informed us apparently this had been on a proposal on the legislative agenda here in Indiana, but that it was rejected in favor of something similar, but not exactly the same. The yellow dot, I think it's called, which broadens it to all medical conditions, not just disabilities, and involves placing a yellow dot on a person's car to signal that they may have additional medical needs. However, I think getting this at the state level is of critical importance, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that is later. And something I did not touch on earlier, I am autistic. I was diagnosed when I was 4. I'm 33 years old now. So I've experienced the stress of driving when you've got those heightened reactions to external stimuli, along with the general, like the responsibility that comes with operating a vehicle is not to be taken lightly. So that can be a lot for people, and that stress, when people can't think clearly, that also means people may not think before they react to certain things, and that can easily cause situations like this to escalate. I'm fortunate that I've never had a bad encounter with the police, but I think just having that firsthand perspective, I think, is important because a lot of disability related initiatives seem to come exclusively from focus groups or from parents or caregivers. And I'm not trying to knock any of those perspectives. Those are all good and dandy. But at the end of the day, the people who are affected most by these programs and these decisions are us, people with disabilities. So I feel our input should be utilized when doing anything adjacent to this. Elise, do you have anything to add since you're
No,
kind of
I
part
mean,
of this?
you really did the research. I came in later after Natalie had done a lot of this research, and it was time to really talk about content development, and we'll talk about that next. And the creation process, which was really cool because, like Natalie said, the ARC was on board to provide resources and insight. And so we kind of got to work thinking about how we wanted to market this to the public and provide public awareness. So when you sign up, there are several things that you get, because when I was thinking through this, I was like, wow, I don't want to just send a blue envelope. People need to know that this is part of the mission of the Marion County prosecutor, Ryan Mears, and the whole office. It's part of something bigger. It's not just the blue envelope, which is part of MCPO, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. It is part of an entire initiative that is led by Natalie and her time at the prosecutor's office over the last 5 years, the Different Not Less initiative, where her role is to make sure that people with intellectual disabilities are seamlessly integrated into their programming, that folks know how to interact with their colleagues, interact with the community. So this is actually much bigger than just blue envelope. So when you apply for your blue envelope, it comes in a large manila envelope. This is actually mine. We actually have two that were delivered to our home because my partner's daughter is autistic, and we needed two because my partner is regularly driving with her in the car, and I regularly have her in my car. So just kind of a pro tip, if you have multiple vehicles in your family or multiple caregivers, grandparents, aunts and uncles, this isn't just for drivers. This can also be for folks who are caregivers, who drive others around, who have passengers in the car, who may need, you may become elevated or anxious at traffic stops and may need to have that extra info to communicate clearly with law enforcement. So we actually have two of these, one for his car and one for mine. So this is one of them. You'll get a manila envelope. And one thing we were really clear about is it says blue envelope inside, because how nervous would you be if you got a big envelope from the Marion County Prosecutor's Office and you weren't sure what it is? That can be a delicate thing. That can be something that in itself creates anxiety. So we wanted to make sure we were saying, hey, this is your blue envelope. You're not involved in a hearing or whatever people may associate with that office. Then you get a letter that is co-written by Prosecutor Ryan Mears and Natalie as program leader of Different Not Less, that thanks you for signing up, for being part of our community, and talks about our kind of hopes and dreams for this project, with a separate kind of how-to on how to fill it out. So we're being really clear, practicing what we preach about being really clear, using simple language, clear communication for how to fill it out. And then we're so grateful for our partnership with the ARC of Indiana. You get an info sheet from the ARC of Indiana about the resources that are available, especially in Marion County, because that's where we reside. Hopefully, when this becomes a statewide program, this will be a state handout So you've got a ton of resources on the back for folks from ARC of Indiana. We're super appreciative. So everyone gets one of these as well. Thank you, ARC. And then of course you get your blue envelope. So we wanted this to really be not just a blue envelope, but a real package of resources, and make people feel like they're really seen, heard, and part of a community, and part of an outreach movement from the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. And again, really, really appreciative of the ARC providing a whole list of opportunities, because y'all are the subject experts. And we need community partners like you to provide that for us, because people trust you, and you are trusted partners of ours, and it means a lot to have your name alongside ours. One thing that we're really proud of is the way that we were able to get law enforcement on board ahead of our launch. In this photo, you'll see IMPD Chief Chris Bailey, Natalie, and Prosecutor Mears. This was at their meeting where they went to pitch Blue Envelope to Chief Bailey. And Natalie, if you want to talk about this, talk about that experience.
Absolutely. We knew when setting this up that getting IMPD backing was imperative, because again, this might have come from our office initially, but at the end of the day, MCPO is not the agency that is actually conducting these traffic stops and engaging with the people who receive these envelopes. That's law enforcement. So having them on the same page as us, knowing what we're doing and being on board with it was of critical importance. So in late April, I had the privilege of meeting with Chief Bailey in his office at the City County building. Prosecutor Mears and our Chief of Staff, Emily Schrock, also came with me. And I had a whole list of arguments on standby of why this would be beneficial, because I didn't know how this was going to go or how much resistance I was going to be met with. But Chief Bailey was all in pretty much immediately. I told him not only how important this is for keeping disabled drivers safe and how that added level of safety makes them better able to contribute to the community, but it also streamlines these things so officers can avoid unnecessary confrontation and violence. With the high profile cases of police brutality, I don't think any agency wants to be on the receiving end of a high profile incident, because that gets them a lot of negative press and could get them in legal trouble. And it's not just that public safety is not just important for those who live here or around here, but also for the hundreds of thousands of people who visit our city every single year for conventions, conferences, sports games, and concerts. Indianapolis has a pretty big tourism industry, and all of the, so building that trust between people with disabilities and law enforcement would have a very large ripple effect and benefit the city as a whole. Chief Bailey agreed with all of this, and he gave us our support that same day, and we're very fortunate to have his backing. We would also love to see other law enforcement agencies eventually get on board with this as well.
Yep. So it was a major victory right off the bat. We're really proud of Natalie and how convincing. I mean, I don't think you even had to really go into some of your backup arguments, even though we love a prepared woman. You went in there like ready. You stay ready. But it was an initial like victory right before we even launched the program, which was really it was good omen for what was about to happen. We also, if you got one of the first runs of the blue envelope, you'll notice it doesn't have two seals, because we had done an initial print of the envelope, and IMPD was so on board that they said, please put our logo and our seal on it as well. We don't just want to be on board, we want to be a part of the Blue Envelope. So Natalie knocked it out of the park, and they became a partner of the Blue Envelope, not just kind of someone who's involved or just ready to receive it. They actually became a real partner. So we were really proud of Natalie's work on that. This is something where we also wanted to practice accessibility and language accessibility. We have a wonderful team at the Marion County Prosecutor's Office that works with our Latino and Hispanic community. And so we wanted to make sure that this resource was also available to our Latino and Hispanic neighbors. So we were able to take the Blue Envelope, and it is now offered in Spanish as well. On one side, the important papers, the instructions for the drivers, that is all in Espanol, in Spanish. And then you'll see on the back, which we have on the screen for you, that is bilingual, because that part needed to be both the officer and the driver needed to read that. So that needed to be bilingual. And then the notes for law enforcement we left in English. So that was really like trying to put that puzzle together of who needed what in which language. But we're really excited to offer this in Spanish right now. And then if there are needs that come up in other languages, we have other staff members on standby. And, you know, again, like making sure that programs are offered to the disabilities community extends to the type of inclusivity that we're trying to do, and having that be intersectional with language accessibility is really important to what the Marion County Prosecutor's Office does. And I'm not sure if you can hear that in the background. I am also having a pet in the background doing some wild things, so hopefully you can't hear that. But I guess it is dinner time for all of our pets, and they're ready. So pardon the dog in the background. So we can talk a little bit, unless Natalie, do you want to add anything about the Spanish version?
I think you covered everything that
Okay.
we needed to, but I'm definitely glad that we have this. And yeah, we've gotten like our team with the office that does those, they're awesome.
Yeah, agreed. We have a wonderful outreach department, and they help in so many different ways with language accessibility, cultural competencies, and just making sure that we get to every single part of Indianapolis with our programs that we offer. The launch and early results were really exciting for us. You'll see we have visuals of, this was an article that ran both in Mirror Indy on WFYI radio and in their print online offerings. And then you'll see there's a photo of Natalie. She was being interviewed by WRTV 6. So that story lives online. So we had a lot of media coverage right off the bat when we officially launched in April, and we had 336 envelopes requested in the very first month. So it's now over 424 and growing. We were really pumped to have such broad media coverage, to have leadership buy-in from community leaders, to have social media engagement, and to have such positive feedback from so many different people. One part of our media and social media engagement strategy was we provided a toolkit to community leaders. In addition to our traditional PR, sending press releases, pitching media, we created a digital toolkit that had Facebook, Instagram, X, and graphics that could be used even on TikTok, that had Blue Envelope, the logo, digital assets, talking points, why it was important a photo of the envelope, a graphic of the envelope, why it was important, links to sign up. And we really tried to provide just a one-stop shop for any type of community leader in the disability space, so that they could also on launch day go out and kind of be a megaphone for us. So that was really, really helpful for us. Again, huge thanks to the ARC for being a partner with us on launch day. Natalie, do you want to talk a little bit about the community impact?
Definitely, this had a wonderful reception among the public right off the mat. Again, going off the with again the 336 envelopes were requested in April alone. And keep in mind, we launched it on like the 23rd. So all of those requests came in about a week. And these are, though most of them were from Indianapolis, we've received requests from, I counted, apparently 79 cities and towns across the state of Indiana, and one request from Tucson, Arizona. We sent an envelope to anybody who requests one. However, it is important to keep in mind, right now, IMPD is our only law enforcement agency partner at this time. So if you present this to officers from somewhere else, they may not know what it is. So just that's something to keep in mind. But do a lot of, outside the office, I also do a lot of work with disability advocacy groups. I know I have a lot of friends and colleagues who are work with service providers, especially employment service providers whose clients are at the age where they drive themselves to work, and they were overjoyed to learn about this. And one thing on our request form is we ask, how did you learn about it? Early on, a lot of it was Facebook, the news, etc. But lately, with the requests that have come in the past couple months, it's been like my caseworker told me about this, or just about a week ago, there was some independent living center, I guess, put the word about it, because we got about half a dozen people from the villages of, and I hope I am pronouncing this correctly, Marici. It's an independent living community with multiple apartment complexes in central Indiana, and several of their residents requested envelopes. So I think it's done people a lot of good, just knowing that in a world where disability struggles tend to be ignored, that there's someone listening that is seeing the struggles that they face and is attempting to do something about it. So
Yeah, and
that was the biggest thing. I wanted to make sure that we weren't, not just with Blue Envelope, but Different Not Less in general, I didn't want this to be about just spewing a bunch of politically correct talking points and calling it a day. I wanted this to be something that would create a tangible difference in people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we want it to be bigger than Marion County. It's really helpful for Marion County. And it upholds, Prosecutors Mirror's mission is to be smart about criminal justice, which means preventing situations and not jamming people up in the system. So we want to share our success here so that other people can experience it. We don't want to gatekeep what we're doing. We want other people to experience success with this program. We want, most of all, people to feel less anxiety. We want people to have more nervous system regulation at these stops, and we want law enforcement to have a much wider understanding of what's happening. So our vision is really to share the success, share the learning, share what we're doing. We're in discussions with legislators on how to expand the program statewide. We just got a request from a legislator in the last couple of weeks that we're going to be pursuing. And nothing is perfect. These are living and breathing projects. As the communities change, as we know better, we try to do better. So we'll continue to improve based on the feedback that you all, community, provide us. So that is our real vision for the future with this. And, Natalie did such a great job talking about why statewide adoption of this type of program matters, because we are already getting those requests from outside the state and people, asking, why doesn't my county have this when they try to sign up for our program? So we're really trying to focus on making our program amazing, but making sure that other people in Indiana also have access to this. So, how can you help? Well, if you're in Marion County, you can sign up to receive your own blue envelope. And Natalie, when you get it, you can know that Natalie is the one who is getting that request. So now you have a face to the form. She's the one who's filling those requests and working behind the scenes to get that to you. And we'll share contact information. So if you have questions, like this is all about who you know, now you know us. Ask, we are here to help. You can spread the word in your communities. Let folks know that this program exists. Let other caregivers in your family know that this exists, kind of like in our situation. We have 2 cars where we have someone with autism in our vehicles. So both of our cars have blue envelopes. That's great. You can apply multiple envelopes per household. Share the blue envelope with local law enforcement communities that you know of, and definitely connect with your legislators about expanding the program. Even if you are in Marion County, you can reach out to your legislators to say, we're so happy this exists. If it comes up in the State House, you should support it. So at this point, I think, Carly, you have been taking questions through the webinar. I think I've seen some pop up. So Natalie, if you're, ready to take those, we
Yeah.
will start in on that.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. And so, ironically, I am having trouble getting my screen back on. That's okay. First of all, ladies, thank you so much for talking with us about all of this today. Natalie, thank you so much for the work you have put in to make sure that this was actually an option, and and that we could bring this to Central Indiana, and making sure that the prosecutor's office was on board, and then making sure that police were on board, and kind of spreading out that ring that ring of understanding. So thank you so much for all of that. And Elise, that is a great idea about making sure that people have them, not just for not just for themselves, but having it for the multiple the all the different family members that they may have. So that's actually a really great idea. We do have several questions that have come up in the chat. And so the first question is, who is disseminating this information to individuals with IDD? I don't know if you guys want to answer that, or if you would like me to weigh in on this. I'd love probably to have both here. So,
Yeah, I think when we launched it originally from the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, we asked several of the county leaders. We sent it to the full city council. We sent it to all of the elected leaders and folks that had state elected leaders that had jurisdiction in Marion County, and said, please send these to all your constituents. Because that was a great way to just cover a lot of bases all at once. We reached out to folks in the disabilities community. But I think probably our strongest partner, and Natalie, jump in with other thoughts, is probably the ARC, and you all having being a partner and sending info out to your membership.
And I do want to say this is still a relatively new project. And there are a few different communities across the state of Indiana who are using this. I know that it's used up in the Valparaiso and Portage area as well. And that's the thing is, you can request a blue envelope. And show it to your local law enforcement, or start with your prosecutor's office and get them on board as well. And start out having some of those conversations that way about trying to expand it to your local community, and really kind of pointing out, hey, we've got a lot of people in our community who have disabilities. This is a way to make interactions safer, and to make law enforcement interactions more pleasant, as strange as that may sound, but better for everyone involved. This is really a safety issue, and this helps create that better understanding for everyone involved. So we've got somebody else who's asking, does this cross county lines? And are you required to live in Marion County? If I don't live in Marion County but work in Marion County, would that qualify?
We will send an envelope to anybody who requests them. They do not need to be residents of Marion County to acquire an envelope. Again, just the one consideration, IMPDs currently are only law enforcement agencies. So if you're pulled over somewhere else, the law enforcement agency they're from may not know what it is. So that's just something to keep in mind. But again, we send them out to everybody who requests one.
And I will also say, because the blue envelope has been getting more attention, and it has been on local news, both television media as well as in print media. And so, especially if you live in the surrounding counties to Marion County, because I know that I live in one of the surrounding counties, yet I come into Marion County all the time. And so, especially if you're in Marion County quite often, that might be a really good reason to have that blue envelope program. And even if other law enforcement agencies aren't necessarily familiar with it right now, I think there's also enough attention grabbing um, uh, information on the envelope and visuals on the envelope that it may make a police officer wonder, hey, what is that? And may ask to see it, and then also get a different understanding. Now, I can't guarantee that, obviously, but that is something that can potentially be going on as well. So I just want to add that, and I love the idea of, even if, especially if you're in one of the surrounding counties, or you come to Indianapolis and Marion County quite a bit, it's a great idea to have that, so that if you do have any sort of police interaction, and that's not just getting pulled over for speeding or anything like that. That can also be something like getting into a car accident, or maybe there is some sort of medical emergency. There's going to be a police officer who winds up being called to that scene. They're going to see that envelope and recognize, oh, hey, wait, we've got something else going on here too that we've got to make sure we're addressing and that we're accommodating. So that's just my 2 cents on that. We've got somebody else. I like this program, and I totally agree with Natalie. I believe that this is something that should be passed in the state of Indiana. I don't think a yellow dot on the vehicle would be highly recommended, because what if you take your vehicle through the car wash or the weather in Indiana and it could fall off the vehicle? That's just their perspective on it. And yeah, especially with the yellow dot program, and I think especially with the yellow dot, part of that was also to, like, warn first responders, hey, we may have somebody who's had some sort of medical issue, like a heart attack or a stroke, or may have had a seizure or something like that. So I view these as two very, very separate programs. And I know that one got, more attention at the state level than the other. But of course, we don't ever give up with any of those things. We keep moving along. What covers the cost of the envelopes?
We have covered the envelopes. I know we placed our initial order for 960 envelopes, and with our provider it was about $450, which averages to about 47 cents per envelope. And keep in mind, we've only issued 424, so that'll last us for a while.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
and this is just part of our operating budget, moving forward because it's a crucial part of our operating at this point.
um, so somebody else is asking, will this information be given to police chiefs throughout the state?
I know that when I spoke with him, Chief Bailey talked about how this would benefit people statewide, and apparently he had some sort of event where he was meeting with other police chiefs, and he said he'd mentioned that. I was not at this event. I do not know what happened or what said, but I do know that getting more police agencies involved is definitely something I want to do. So
Will this also be something that's shared with other prosecutors across the state?
sure, we could definitely have that happen.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, we are open to, like I said, we don't want to gatekeep any of these resources. We want to make sure we're sharing resources, not just with community members who are in need of the resources, but with the people who are really the stakeholders making these decisions. So, um, like we kind of see ourselves as maybe a pilot.
Mhm.
We know Porter County also has done this too. So there are two really good examples for why this could work for folks. So we're
And
here
I will
to
tell
share.
you in the Q&A, you guys are getting lots and lots of love.
Oh,
I've got one person,
great.
I love this. I need to tell my team. This is a great idea. So lots of messages like that as well. Um, to start this in my community, should I start with reaching out to the police or the prosecutor's office? Where's the best place to start?
That's a great question. And I would maybe say both.
Okay.
I think um both probably have outreach departments, folks on their team that do community outreach. And those are excellent individuals to start with because those are the folks who are the outward facing staff members that interface with community, that really work as the conduit to take information back and forth. So you kind of need both. So you could start with you could you could try both, but you definitely need law enforcement as well. So it's kind of a chicken or the egg. I would do both. Just cast a wide net and see how it goes. If you have limited resources, try one or the other. But within those departments, I would say if you're looking for the proper or a good staff member to start with, try their outreach folks.
And I will say, I know that we've got a lot of people on the webinar tonight who live in rural communities. And so, that's very different from Indianapolis and from Marion County. But there's always going to be someone. And you're right, Elise, starting with, the communications or the community outreach or the community support outreach officer or something like that is a great place to start. I'm gonna give another plug there. And if you know of anyone who works for the police department, or who works for the prosecutor's office,
Yep.
or who works in, the courthouse or anything like that.
Or the sheriff's department,
Mhm.
county sheriffs, if you're in a rural
Right,
area,
right.
any type of first responder could be really helpful.
Right. Find the other parents or the grandparents, because here's the thing, there are lots of us nowadays. Having a disability is not a rare thing anymore. There are lots of us, and let's be honest, we support each other. We take care of each other. We have all gone through so many things and we've had so many different experiences. We want to make life easier for the people who come after us. So you find those parents, you find those grandparents, and especially the grandparents, because you know what? Nobody messes with their grandkids. And so if you've got one who works in any office who interacts with law enforcement, tap into them to help spread this message and help recruit them to get your local law enforcement and other agencies on board with this too. So that's my shameless plug on that.
Advocacy is always done well in coalition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where can people go, or who do they call? Where do they go on a website to be able to request the blue envelope?
You go to the Marion County Prosecutor's website, which is mcpo.indy.gov. And from there, there's a series of menu options,
Okay.
and one of them should say blue envelope. And from there, you'll find the link to the registration form. Complete the registration form. It'll appear, I've got access to all the requests that have been formally submitted. And then I usually email new envelopes out once every 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay. Somebody's asking an interesting question that makes a lot of sense, which is, what if you're deaf or hard of hearing? How can you communicate that to law enforcement?
That's a great question, and that's something that I think we need to be further developing in this program. Right now, we have been working on kind of that initial phase, which is the envelope itself. I think in that case, it may be maybe an additional marker, and we need to maybe see what other states have done in addition to blue envelope. But that is a great question for us to do some further exploring. And that's a big part of why we say this is a living and breathing program, because it's questions like this, it's showing up in community spaces like this that help us make our program more accessible and keep us doing better when we know better. So thank you so much for that question.
And one of the other things I want to point out is you don't have to exclusively choose one option. So you can have a blue envelope and have that ready on your visor as needed, and you can have the yellow dot on the inside of your rear window, or you can create your own um, um, sticker or your own card to say, I'm an individual who is deaf. I need to sign or write to communicate with you, or whatever your specific situation is. You can use multiple different programs and multiple different ways to communicate your needs to law enforcement or to first responders, so that it's not just law enforcement, but maybe there's been, like I said, an auto accident or something like that, and an ambulance has been called. That's a great way to inform them, hey, there's something else going on here. And so if we have somebody who is deaf, or maybe somebody who doesn't communicate verbally, you can have some sort of notification there, so that they're not misunderstanding a situation and thinking that because you're not responding to the questions they ask, that you're having more difficulty than you are. That way they're saying, oh wait, this is an individual who doesn't communicate verbally, or this is
Yeah,
an individual who is deaf or hard of hearing, so that's why they're not responding to my verbal questions.
I know in some autism circles, there are either bumper stickers that parents get to signal like that they have a nonverbal autistic child on board, or something that they attach to like their seat belt to signal. So
Do individual police officers in Marion County receive training in the Blue Envelope program?
So, oh, go ahead, Natalie.
I'm thinking a training is we haven't, I don't know if we've done a full training per se. That's definitely something I would like to do. You were saying.
Okay.
We gave them kind of the resources and an explainer for what it is. And so we're kind of with their kind of partnership that they would educate their police force on what to do with the stops. They send it out to their membership and to their staff so that they would know what it is. And I just wanted to add one more thing, that the notes about me section is also a great place to put any type of additional things that law enforcement should know if there are additional needs. But I do think for hearing impaired, that we could maybe do an additional type of signal, but that's something we should look into.
Okay. And somebody has written in here, and I could not agree with her more. I just want to thank you, both of you, for developing and implementing this program. This is desperately needed. Big kudos to both of you. And like I said, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for all of your work on this, and bringing it to the largest county in Indiana, bringing this to a variety of law enforcement officers is huge. And having this in Marion County, I know that IMPD is going to be sharing information on this, but then that's also going to get shared with the state police. That's also going to be shared with the other surrounding jurisdictions. And so while it starts here, the ripple effects from this are going to be huge. And so we're going to get more and more awareness from this. And ladies, I cannot thank you enough for all of your work and help with this. I do want to check just to see if another question had come in. It has not. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope this information was helpful. If you have any other questions, you are welcome to call us here at the ARC of Indiana at 317-977-2375. You can talk with any of our family advocates, whether it's about the Blue Envelope program or anything else. We'd love to be able to talk with you and help get you the resources in your community. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and have a wonderful night. Good night, everyone.